Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
8, 7,
This is Houston, say again, please.
5,
Houston, we've had a problem.
3, 2,
We've had a main B plus undervolt.
0.
Roger, main B undervolt. Okay, stand by 13, we're looking.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Rendezvous. Today we have a new group member that we want to say warm welcome to. That is Karen Christine Patrick and her Earth Anomaly Research Society group on Facebook that was accepted as a family member in the UFAH group today. And we will also say welcome to you, Karen, and thank you for being here. Hello, Karen.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, we're very, very excited to be added to the family, and thank you so much for asking us, Tommy.
We are glad to have you here. Before we continue with you, Karen, we are going to say hi to Martine that is here today. We have Billy Carson today here also. We have Rami Ilan with us today also. And the topic today is, of course, since we've got a new group, Earth Anomaly, it is Earth anomalies, and I know that Karen has a topic that she wanted to present, the Bucegi Mountains in Romania. It's a very interesting area. It's a very interesting story that has been going on for a few years now. Karen, would you please tell us your thoughts about the Bucegi Mountains?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. First, I want to say a little bit about the Earth Anomaly Research Society. We are within about 21 members of being at the 4,000 member mark. And how the Earth Anomaly Research Society got started, well, Andrew Bucegi started the Mars Anomaly Research Society, and then Brett Colin Shepard renamed his group the Lunar Anomaly Research Society, and they were trying to make sure that the anomalies got, they didn't have too much overrun between Mars and the Moon, because those are big topics, and of course Facebook only gives you a few little slots at the top, to talk about your latest thing. So they thought they were getting things like crop circles and volcanoes and sinkholes and the Baltic Sea anomaly and Bigfoot sneaking into their groups. So they decided to do, or we all talked about doing a Earth-based one, or at least those two boys did. And it was Andrew Bucegi who said to Brett Colin Shepard, "Hey, what about Karen Christine Patrick? She'd probably be pretty good at that." I've been interested in Earth anomaly things since pretty young, after reading Charles Fort. If anybody knows what Fortean means, it means, he was kind of a newspaperman who collected all kinds of strange anomalies and put them in. If you want to read his material, the complete works of Charles Fort will still blow your mind this over a century later. It's phenomenal. So I took that on and started, so we had Mars, and then we had Lars, and then we had EARS, E-A-R-S, Earth Anomaly Research Society, and our two anomalies. Our first anomaly was one near and dear to your heart, Mikey, was the Baltic Sea anomaly, and Neville T. made he made a wonderful banner for us.
Pointing at it up here.
And it was wonderful.
On my wall. I'm just pointing it out, the
Good.
Baltic Sea anomaly.
Yes!
I don't know how much
Oh,
you can see.
I think it's fascinating, and I'm so glad you're...
It's a part of me.
I think I can see it, yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're very connected to that. Yes, I short of going there and diving there yourself, you're on it, and I love that, because what's began to happen very much in the last this year is very in-depth researchers coming into Earth Anomaly Research Society and sharing material. So we're not just getting, the usual stuff on Before It News circling around. We're getting, people who are there on the ground, people who've been to some of these places reporting. And we generally cover, it'd be like crop circles, geoglyphs that you could see from space, like the Nazca lines, volcanoes, sinkholes, animals dying, and I'm very close to the state of Arkansas that had several million drumfish die in a river and several rainfalls of blackbirds that fell out of the sky. So those kinds of things. It was weird weather anomalies. We get those here in Texas, all over the place, really. But you know, we got Tornado Alley here, so we get some strange things from that. So kind of the down on the ground, down on Earth, down under the earth, under the sea, we kind of cover all of that. So it's a lot of fun. We get into some debates.
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you because I want to say something here.
Go ahead.
I am glad that we have you between us now because I want to hear about all these things you just told about. So, warm welcome to you, Karen, in the UFAH group here. Now you can continue. Yes. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Interrupt me. It's a bit of a delay on my end. I feel like I'm in the dark and down in a bunker in Texas trying to communicate with you. But we keep it dark in here because it's 98 degrees out there, and Brett and I are not from this planet. We're Irish, and we melt in the sun. So we keep it dark so we can keep it cool. But anyway, yeah, so we're pretty convinced we're from space. But yeah, anyway, it's great. And I want to say, too, that Earth Anomaly is like, we're trying to cover history, the hidden history really well. That's a huge interest for me personally because I don't believe that the history we've been given is accurate. It's controlled and managed for the sake of certain groups, religion, politics. And also we try to catch the UFO question a little bit, although I'm a member and admin for extraterrestrial visitation, extra-dimensional things as well, and UFO things as well. So it generally speaking, we don't get a lot of UFO alien stuff. But hey, if they landed on Earth, we'll talk about it.
Can I ask you a question?
They came out from under the sea. We'll talk about it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Yes. How many groups do you admin on Facebook?
Yes. My last count was almost 50.
You're a busy woman.
Quite a few, and well, I just have this knack for adminning, and as groups, came on, I either was a co-admin with quite a few. Some of the people dropped out, so I ended up being an admin. I've actually gone and gotten other admins to help me with the groups, and sometimes they stick around, sometimes they don't. It's a really hard job. It's hard to be the sort of the bouncer when the trolls come in to take abuse. It's a good thing. It's thickened my skin up because I can't take it personal. We've been opt. Our types of groups are opt way bad. In other words, we have professional grade trolls coming in and causing all kinds of trouble. And the biggest event I had with that was with Brett Collins Shepard when the Lunar Anomaly group was attacked at the 7,500 member mark, and we finally had to close it completely down. And we found almost 200 fake accounts that we don't know who that was. And you kind of, there's little markers that of who's a troll and who's not. And in this particular case, we could not erase any of the material, very horrible material that was put on our group that could have got our group closed anyway.
Karen,
we had no control.
I'm going to interrupt
and sometimes
you again.
We have people come in. Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you again because I know that we have been writing a little bit in our own little family group here, and you have been written a little bit and put up some links about the Bucegi Mountain. And I would like to hear something about the Bucegi Mountain now, because you are one of those that really have been digging into to this area. So, Karen, tell us what you know. We want to know. Yeah. I'll segue the troll thing to the Bucegi Mountain case because I want to make sure people understand that lots of things that get looked at in Earth Anomaly research and other types of groups are very highly monitored by secret government and three-letter agencies, and that is in fact a part of the story of the Bucegi Mountain case and part of the reason why it's a bit difficult to get out and understand. So that was the salient point. I'm sorry if I went off a little bit on it, but it's important for people to know it's not a typical type of research. It's got research with flack. So to start off on the Bucegi Mountain, if you want to get the first slide, which is the beautiful
picture of the Bucegi mountain range. It's a beautiful, very sharp peaked mountain, and in 2003, this cave area was found that was immediately kind of swooped in on by the top secret section of the Romanian Intelligence Service, which is called the Zero Department. I believe it's its nickname. And they very shortly, so like 2003, they found the anomalous cave system. Hello, are you there? Because I've got a blank screen now.
We are there. I'm just showing some pictures here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So I just looked up on Wikipedia that Romania was not a part of NATO at the time of this discovery in 2003, and very quickly it says, both in the story about this as well as on Wikipedia, it says that in 2004 suddenly the charming, quaint European country of Romania suddenly needed to be in NATO. So I think that's, the timing is very, very interesting. And I'm not going to go into the people too much. I'm just going to try to get the gist of the one. What there was a cave system that was found up inside the mountains. That was not like a cave, like a rugged stalactite sort of cave. It was actually very smoothed out, like it was done with some kind of digging capacity that made a smooth surfaces. There's dome areas inside. There's tunnels inside that are very smooth surface to them. So this is this would be a high-level technology for us today to try to dig a tunnel and make it smooth-sided, like for in a subway or some kind of thing like that. Then some of the other features of these rooms is they had very high, like tables and chairs. So you're talking about chairs and tables that are for people not our size. There are for people 12 feet tall, not the average person 6 foot tall or 5.5 foot tall. So the researchers ostensibly had to get on stools or things to get high enough to get up to the tables to find out what was on them. And they discovered, now this is the part, this is going to be the part to kind of wrap your head around as a researcher. We think caves, we think cavemans, we think primitive. No, far from it. We're talking about actually something that's been there that's very old, but very high-tech. And the research that I work through with the lunar anomaly research and other the UFO research gets into underground facilities that have types of technology we don't use in abundance. We have holographic technology ourselves, human beings do. I used to be in a computer lab, and next door was the holographic lab where they made holographic pictures. And so I got a little bit of taste of the laser process that they use for that. But this is a type of technology where I guess you sit in front of it or you wave your hand or something happens, and a full holographic projection pops out of the table. Now, I believe in the later levels of holographic technology of humanity, we kind of have some of those displays, although they're more experimental. And I'm not entirely certain if they're not, these kinds of holograms are ones you could actually touch. I know that they said there was tiles or some kind of database tiles that you would slide in front of the hologram, and that would give different effects. But not only did they have some kind of holographic projections popping up on the display of the tables, but they also had a projection room, and that's in one of the slides. There was a projection room, so it'd be much larger sized hologram. And to describe what they saw was they saw a couple of hologram displays. One of them, the larger one, showed, it was almost like a recording. It showed Earth history, but not Earth history like we know it. Earth history from a different viewpoint, from the maybe alien viewpoint. And our history as we receive it is manipulated and layered in such a way as to prevent us from knowing much about our history before a certain point. So we tend to be guided toward our more modern history, the history of our wars and conquering and fighting and all those things. This is the history of the cosmos, the history of the planet, the geography and Earth floods and ice ages and all those kinds of stuff seemed to be what was projected in this projection room. And then the one on the table was really super fascinating, because up on the table they actually had this one display that they described where you had a tile of like a human and a tile of like a gray. It's very familiar to people, the hybridization program. And you put the two tiles together in front of the display and you would see a hybridized being, like a cross between a human and a gray that people are familiar with from other UFO stories and cases. And so then you would have maybe a reptilian tile, and you put it next to the Earth one, and you would see a reptilian-human hybrid, and so on and so forth. So that was very interesting, maybe trying to see what kind of being would you get if you crossed them, or whether they were even compatible to be crossed by maybe in vitro fertilization or something like that. Or maybe even by mating. We know there's stories of that from some of the human contactee stories, that there's that form of hybridization as well as biblical references. People might know about the giants who came from the Elohim beings that mated with human women. So this is not just UFO contactee stories. The stories of the giants goes through people familiar with biblical history, or they're familiar with folklore and mythological stories, and of other beings all over the world. The ancient stories from India. There is more going on than just humans, marrying, having kids, or having a war. Seems to be a story of other beings also being involved in the human history. And then one of the other displays, just to finish on the holographic display story, is fascinating, because this particular display showed a display of when there was a particular flood in the past. Brett's touched on it before, the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea flood, which occurred when, I believe how it occurred was that the ocean level came up 400 feet at one point, and that's why we have all of these undersea cities that are being found off the coast of Japan, and in other places, the island of High Brazil, which was off the coast of Ireland. We have, I've personally seen Earth anomaly pictures. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, we talked about that. The level of the ocean came up 400 feet and inundated quite a few civilizations. And, of course, we have the concept of Atlantis, which I want to clarify quickly. I wasn't a big into the Atlantis thing. Now I really am quite a bit more because of the research I've been doing. And apparently Atlantis was really more of an empire instead of just a one place. And that might be hence the confusion of where was Atlantis. Well, we have Alexander the Great, who named a bunch of cities Alexandria after himself. So where was Alexandria? Well, it's all over the place. So the same thing with Atlantis. It's possible it was an empire that was then inundated, and the survivors went different directions. But one direction was they went west to east, and they were the sea people, spoken of by many different traditions in Europe, and they came and either were given some land grants by various kings, because big giant 9-foot people are handy to have around when you have a war, or they actually conquered other peoples, but they had to be kind of absorbed into the remaining land mass that was around. And so this, there's layers to the story. I'm not giving an exact chronology because I'm not entirely certain, because we have missing chapters of the history. And one missing chapter is the Pelagian Empire, and that figures in to the story of the Bucegi Mountains and how I came into the story. I had just glanced at the material by Radu Sinamar and Peter Moon and other researchers, and I've given some links. I'll make sure that people have other links. The Living Moon site has a big link on that.
I'm gonna put up all the links here later.
Good.
So they can find it on the YouTube channel. Yes. Please continue.
Yes. So, unless anybody, I'll tell you how I got into this research. But I'll hold for questions for a minute here.
Yeah, I have some questions. We were talking about, or I was doing some research on it, and I must be honest, I didn't know much about the Bucegi Mountains before we agreed to take it up as a topic today. So of course I did some research here the last few days, and one of the things I stumbled across was a lot of giant skeletons and skulls in the area around the Bucegi Mountain. What are your thoughts about that? If you say the tables were built for meters,
Well, I believe that
if you say the tables were built for giant people,
yes.
It's in my mind it seems related, of course. But do we have any proof besides those pictures that are on the internet? Does we have any people, scientists, backing it up? I didn't get that far, but I think if anybody would know, you would be the one, Karen.
Well, we're gonna have a lot of difficulty with the giant story, and I'll give you an example. Here in the giant story is a very suppressed story, because once you know about the giants and the story of how they got there from quite a few archaeological digs and the historical record and quite a few other things, you began to realize, not to pick on people who believe in the Bible, but the biblical narrative starts to fall apart, because we have a prehistory of human and giant and other alien species before the narrative of Genesis takes up with regular-sized humans and all of their adventures, except for occasionally when giants entered the scene, being the Nephilim story in the Bible, as well as the story of David and Goliath, and in that case was a giant from Philistia, and Philistia was one of the nations of the Phoenicians, which goes right back to these giants that were maritime experts. They were seagoing maritime experts. They called them the sea people. So another branch of that story would be the Vikings, who were able to build very sturdy craft and go and raid other nations and also move to other areas of the world. So one of the we have several disconnects. I don't know, breaks in the story. So understand, all of our knowledge right now we have is compartmentalized on purpose in order to have humanity have belief systems that allow the elite to stay in charge, for our religion to function properly. They make disconnects, and they say on one side of our side of the box is real and provable, quote unquote, and what's on the disconnect side is fantasy and myth. But they've been able to maintain the idea this was fantasy and myth by covering the evidence. That's why Charles Fort was all over it. And Charles Fort wrote a book called The Book of the Damned, and he talked about all of the evidence that gets hidden away in order to make the current narrative be real. So we all know that as anomalous, because they say all the planets are big rocks with no water. And we know that on our side of it, we have proof because we're seeing it with our very own eyes and sorting out what we've been told through NASA and the degradation of the database of pictures that are given to us. So we, on our side of the box, we can't necessarily prove scientifically whether our anomalies are real or not, but we can forensically pick through what they're doing, how they are putting the information out, and the narrative story they're trying to tell us that we're the only ones on this little blue planet in the entire freaking galaxy, and we all have doubts. Some intuitive part of us picks away at that information and finds they're lies. I can't say it any softer. They're lies that uphold a consensus reality show. It's a show, a scientific consensus reality show.
Karen?
And the fact of the matter is, not one single one of us could go to a Yes, sir.
Yes, Karen, just to get back to the Bucegi Mountains, sorry to interrupt you, but I have written a few questions down here about the Bucegi Mountains, and when I saw the one of the videos I got when I googled Bucegi Mountain, I saw something about energetic shield and how there was had protected the entrance with some sort of energetic shield, as we imagine from some Star Wars, star fiction movie. What are your thoughts on those energetic shields? And the video I saw here described a man called Cesar being the only one that could go through the shield with his hands and touch the tablet or the drawing of a triangle, a pyramid that actually was somehow an instrument to open to go further inside the mountain. What are your thoughts on those energetic shields, and how do you think they are powered?
Oh, okay. Well, let me then say, I'm just going to throw a bunch at you here. Basically, the giants are ancestors of certain lines of humans who intermarried into the human population in order to be able to live on the surface of the earth. And they are some of the bloodlines of Europe. And what you find as you go back through these bloodlines is you eventually end up in the countries around the Black Sea, is where the some of the earliest European human races came to, like a city-state level, and that was under the influence of their ancestors from space. I'm just throwing that out there because that how the energetic fields work is that someone has to be from one of those bloodlines in order to have the right DNA, enough of a progenitor DNA to be able to open it up. Just so it'd have to be a family member. It'd have to be a member of the family of one of the giant races who came here, and that's what I'm. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say, is that this is going to be difficult to understand in the given context if somebody does not dig in to our human origins, coming from space, coming to the Atlantean Empire, a cataclysm, flood, ice age, whatever. A group of humans going underground. That's a very important part of the story. I was reading the Native American part of that story. Then emerging again, and this is where you get into the story of the Pelagians. The Pelagian Empire is a completely missing empire in European and American history, because that is the survivors of Atlantis who came out from underground after the cataclysms in the Ice Age to repopulate the surface of the Earth and create and interact with indigenous or people on the Earth that were there. It's a bit confusing, but the main thing is Pelage, the name Pelagian. That was an empire, and it was defeated by the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire wiped it out of history, just like the Egyptians wiped out Hatshepsut and also Akhenaten. They did not want that part of the history to go forward because they were very fierce enemies, and they wanted a different narrative. Because you don't want to talk about how great you are when there's somebody 9 to 12 feet tall or bigger than you. You want to be the tallest one in the room. So you erase the ancestor story and make it your mythical gods. But the people who descended from those families are still around. They are your royalty, your royal lines. And one of the stories I have followed to get to the story was the ancestry, our ancestry and our genealogy. Because our genealogy goes back, and if you kind of go past where it's been altered, our genealogies have been altered, you find out that there are, we have strains of people, almost all of us, we're all mixed up now, we probably all have a relative that was a giant, was one of these Pelagian people, and they were anywhere from 7 to 9 or 9 to 12 feet tall. And then, so when you put this background story first, which I had the privilege of doing, then you come to the Bucegi Mountain story, then a tremendous amount of things make sense. This would have been one of the underground bases that those people emerged from, and then created cities and civilizations on the surface of the earth. Pelagian, that's the word to key in on. Pelage was the ancestor who emerged from the earth, and that earthborn is how his name is broken down in the original languages. Earthborn, born of the earth, Pelage. And I also went through a book by a Romanian historian. I found this, it was written 100 years ago. And his name is Nicolae Densusianu. And he went for 40 years and collected all the folklore and stories from Romania. He went to all the libraries and found the old books. And he wrote a narrative book. It's actually 1,000 pages and only 250 or so translated into English, where he wrote the stories of Romania from prehistoric times, literally from the caveman days, or before the, modern caveman guys. He wrote this story and he published it, and it's been just a dusty book nobody pays attention to. And Romania and some other countries are having a revival of interest in their ancient history because, of course, they went through totalitarianistic governments. So they had their history was covered and covered and covered by the Roman Catholic Church, by the kings that came after, then the totalitarianism governments. So the people there are having their own revival of their own history, and they discovered this gentleman, Nicolae Densusianu. And if you read that book and dig into what he is saying, then you got a context in your mind to a certain extent of who the giants were that you would find up in the mountains that were buried up in the hills. So basically that was their ancestors. That was one part of their ancestry, was these giants. And the giants were multiple generations enough to where they might not even know they were from space either. But they know that they were the kings, and they were promoted to being god kings. And actually, Greek mythology, by the time the Greeks get the story, it's now mythology. It's fantastical stories. But for Densusianu and other researchers, they were people. They were really tall, but they were people. They were god kings. They were living flesh beings. And he doesn't get too much into the part where they're coming from space, but it's kind of, you put these pieces together, you see, and open your mind, you see this longer narrative. This discovery in Bucegi Mountains is that connection point.
I'm going to interrupt you again, Karen, because you talked about changing history, and you talked about that we are not getting the full history, and those who can change it for their own benefit would do it, as we saw in Egypt with Akhenaten. Isn't that the same that is happening here with the Bucegi Mountain? When I saw and read about the U.S. government trying to interrupt, interfere with the Romanian government, and what I read, I don't know if there's any hold on this or if it's true, but I read on this link that the U.S. government threatened the Romanian government to cut back foundations and economic support and stuff like that if they would make disclosure on the Bucegi Mountains. Do you know anything about those rumors? Are they true?
I'm going to well, I don't know, true, false proof. My feeling is, let's look at the story and the narrative and say, does this make sense? If you have, United States government is primarily a Christianized nation. It tends to be, I'm in the Texas area, it's very Bible, church-oriented. They believe this narrative from the Bible, quite literally, very literalist, especially here where I'm at. I grew up in a religion that was that way as well. And if you have, if we're able to get cameras and take pictures and have those artifacts shown to the public that literally completely changes that narrative and says that we aren't from the hand of God made into beings, and when the Eve comes out of the rib of Adam, but rather we're descended from beings from space, you better believe they don't want the public to get hit with that all at once or at all, and would put that on the same level of shutdown that they do UFO secrecy. They do not want this story, proof of this, to come out because it will change everything that we believe. And so this is why the heavy involvement from the U.S. government.
Okay. Something else now that we're here. I want to ask Martine, Billy, Rami, what do you think of Bucegi Mountain? Martine?
Well, it's an extraordinary place. I mean, I looked at some photos before we started the talk, and I mean, the rock on the mountains. I mean, it looks like a great fortress, doesn't it? It's an amazing thing. I was fascinated I read a report that one of the locals gave, whether it's true or not, but I found that quite interesting. This woman, and she said that apparently there are many entrances leading to many catacomb systems inside the mountain, and she said that the locals know that 90% are now blocked off and 10% are guarded by the military. She says that it seems to be well known as well amongst the locals that that there is a geomagnetic anomaly there, and that is actually being reported by scientists that have researched the area. And whether this is true or not, she said that also every year on the 28th of November, the sun arcs over the Sphinx, in quotes, the Sphinx, creating this visible pyramid, which seems to be created from arcs of light and the rainbow. So whether this is, some sort of trick of light, I don't know. But I thought I always like to see what the locals might say about a place and what they believe and what's followed down in their history. But can you give us some sort of idea of chronological order? How old? How far back are we going to this Pelagio era?
Karen?
Yes, I'm not going to pin it down in years, because to me it's kind of like epochs or parts of the story. So going just strictly from Nicolae Densusianu starting, he is starting with, of course, the early people that lived there. They have things called tumuluses, which were large mounds that were the tombs of the gods. In his narrative, the gods were flesh and blood kings. So we have our planet Uranus, for instance, would be Uranos, who was a king there. Saturn was a king in their stories. Some of the classic gods, Hercules was the king of the Trotsians, by the way. If you saw the latest movie with The Rock, he actually goes to Trotsia, that country, and that was one of their districts of the Pelagian Empire. And so those are those kind of epic, legendary times. We're picking up the concept of them being the people from space, from perhaps the Sumerian Anunnaki story. Maybe might be the best narrative to look from, and they were spacefaring beings who had a base on Mars. They had bases on the moon, and they also had several city-states on the Earth. And what I've been told from other sources is that it's more common for a spacefaring race to be tootling around in their mothership and land not on the surface of a planet, but actually underground, because they can control the environmental things first, if you can imagine, and then go up top and see if it's okay to be up top. So that might be another part of that early spacefaring part, as well as the cataclysmic era, where there was apparently wars, maybe a nuclear winter, maybe an ice age, a flood. There's a Russian historian, Nick Velikovsky, and he talked about worlds in collision, where a large piece of ice came in between the moon gravitation, Earth gravitation, and that raised the ocean level and caused some of the events in the Bible, the cataclysmic events in the Bible. It was his belief, Immanuel Velikovsky. So then there's the epic after, where they came back up and populated the Earth again, and they were a very large tribe of people. And apparently they've been seen all over the world. There's tall, they were very pale-skinned, redheads, in some cases, blonde in others. They were seen in Peru, in the Americas. It was a tall, giant white tribe. They were seen in China, and seem to be really highly populated in that Black Sea area. So that'd be Turkey, East. Yes.
Karen, we have 10 minutes left, and I would like to hear Billy, if he have any thoughts of this he would like to share with us. Billy, we lost your sound.
Am I back?
You are back. I don't know if
Okay.
you have been talking for a long time.
No, I had some thunder in the background. There's a very bad storm here, and I didn't want the storm to come on the video.
Okay.
What I was saying was I'm very glad we brought this topic up because this is a very, very interesting topic. The more videos that I watched and researched about it yesterday and today, it really kind of had me stunned. If this is true, this is absolutely an amazing story. I did have a couple of questions. One question was, does this have anything to do with the Bosnian pyramids? Are they tied together? Is there any evidence showing that this is linked maybe with the pyramids in Bosnia?
Karen?
Yeah, considering the era that we're talking about, it's possible that it's linked with quite a few things. The Earth was populated at one time before the cataclysms, and they built pyramids. It was one of their technologies to harvest subtle energies. So that would be, I believe, at least one of the purposes of the pyramids that we see in Egypt and other places. Also, pyramids have a considerable underground presence. So these were maybe the markers for a spaceship to say, hey, where do you land? Right here. And then they went underground. So we're going to be there was tunnels inside the Bucegi Mountain facility going to Tibet, Iraq, and I forgot or Egypt. So there was, I think we're talking about the underworld story we should talk about sometime. But the underworld is a huge part of the human history story, yet untold.
Yes.
Okay. Now, one more quick question on the, as far as the underground tunnels there. Did they find any large crystal stones? Has there been any archaeological, remnants or anomalies found in these tunnels before getting to the force field?
I'm not certain about what the deal is with the tunnels. I know there's quite a few artifacts they found in the Bucegi facility, including amphora of monoatomic gold, white powder gold, and many other things. These are all, if you understand that story as well, these are all interconnected. That's why I began to believe this really something to the story, was how it interconnected with other anomalies and other historical stories.
Wow, that's amazing. Monoatomic gold. I didn't know they had that there. This is a great story. I love it.
Yeah.
Rami, have you anything you want to add to or ask?
Yes. I wonder, is there any evidence of this story? Are there photos? Are there any documents? U.S. government documents, Romanian government documents. I understand there is testimonies, and that's fine. But what do we have more than that? Can we focus on that, on the evidence, or just? I mean, we know all about the governments and they're hiding and they're lying and everything. So we know it's clear. We agree upon that. They do it all the time with everything. But now specifically focusing on that chamber with the hologram and everything that I heard. Do we have anything substantial we can examine, or it's all
speculation?
Yes, I can't produce them here on the spot. I'm continuing to dig in this. This is one of those things where this would be a story highly suppressed in a similar manner as UFO, so it takes quite a bit of digging. I've decided to really focus on this one for my own contribution to Earth Anomaly Research Society and try to get more of that information. But this would be very difficult to get. I'll see what I can find. It's a continuing story we follow on ears, and I'm just giving an introduction. But you have asked a very excellent concern and question, Rami, and I'll try to make sure that kind of thing ends up on ears.
I think maybe you and I, Karen, could work something out on the MarsMoonSpace.com where we could collect some of all these links and this YouTube video also, and maybe if you can find some of those evidence that Rami is talking about, we could maybe also put them in one place and collect it all together. If you want to, I don't know if you want to do that together with me as a kind of project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. I would like to do that. Yes, I would like to do that. Make sure I have my own notes to go to whenever I need them, but they can be shared with other people.
Thank you, Karen. Martine has a question.
I was just going to say, those images you showed at the beginning, you know, with the diagrams, who's responsible for having created those illustrations and diagrams?
I believe those are to be found in the books by Radu Sinamar that were brought to the United States and translated into English by Peter Moon. I do not own a copy of those books, so I am going to be digging into that story as well because I really want to know for my own research.
Okay, thank you.
This has been a very interesting topic. As most of you probably know, we are most doing Mars, Moon, and space anomalies in UFAH. So Earth anomalies is a very, very welcome and new topic for us to discuss. Personally, I've been buried myself in Mars anomalies for the last 2 years, so it's also new for me to talk about Earth anomalies besides the Baltic Sea anomaly. So we are very glad to have you here, Karen, and I want to thank you very, very much for taking your time together with us and answering our questions to you. And I want to say before we are ending up here today that Karen and the Earth Anomaly Research Society is not the only new group we got in the UFAH. We also got a new member yesterday that is called Solar Trajectory Anomalies Research, which is hosted by Mr. Drasik, and you can find a link to that on our UFAH page, which I will link to this video also, and he's also a new member in this family. We are gonna hear a little more to him. I hope it will be next time. And I have a little more info also for those of you who likes the Baltic Sea anomaly. I promised to tell following that I've got an agreement with Mr. Peter Lindberg, the founder of the Ocean X team, that he is gonna join me in a two-person interview here, and I hope this will be done during the next week. I can't give any specific time on it. Peter Lindberg is a busy man. They can go from one day to another out on the sea and be away for a week or two if anything happens. So I hope to bring you more Earth anomaly news from Peter Lindberg and the Baltic Sea anomaly soon also. I want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you, Martine. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Rami. And thank you, Karen, for your wonderful presentation of the Bucegi Mountain. And I'm gonna guarantee all of you that we are gonna hear much more about the Bucegi Mountain in the UFAH group or on the UFAH page on Facebook. Is there any one of you who want to add some last words?
I did notice something very particular about the region or the Bucegi Mountains when I looked it up. There are many, many carved mountains there, carved hillsides, just like we find on Mars, Venus, comets, asteroids. I saw just in some of the videos that I looked at about 15 different carved heads, faces, all in the mountains. And it's the same type of architecture that we're finding on the moon and everywhere else. So in my opinion, it has to be the same architect. It's probably the same architect or somebody who knows the architect. So this is really amazing stuff.
Yeah, Coach, this is excellent observation. I also felt when I looked at some of the rocks, I didn't know what was legitimate there or what wasn't of what I saw, but it reminded me of Mars, and I figured someone who can handle rocks in that magnitude, in that size, in that weight, and carve them so well, what it appears to be easy to me, because why would they do it? They can do easier things, but I think that they do it because it's easy.
Yes.
It's not a big problem for them to lift up like 50 tons boulder and move it around.
Karen, do you happen to know what kind of rock is there? They call it the Jurassic outcrop. Do you know what the rock is? Is it granite or limestone? Or it'd be interesting to know if it was easy to carve those.
I'm not certain. Well, I'm wondering if there's a connection between the rock composite and the fact that it has a magnetic anomaly.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in the connection of a magnetic field anomaly there and quite possibly in the Baltic Sea anomaly. So we're dealing with a higher level tech of rock carving, perhaps lasers and ways to lift rock, able to carve out smooth tunnels and things. So there's a lot there, yeah. So I'm not certain.
Thank you.
Karen, do you want to have the last word for today?
I just want to really say thank you and how much I've been appreciating how your group has been happening, and to be a part of it is really thrilling. I'm going to tell everybody I know about it. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Karen.
Karen, thank you.
And I want to say to you out there watching that go find the links in the YouTube video description. And until we see us again next time, which will probably be next Monday, take care then. Bye everybody.
Bye, Martine.
Bye.
10,
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
8, 7,
This is Houston, say again, please.
5,
Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a main B plus level.
0.
Roger, main B undervolt. Okay, stand by 13, we're looking.